Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to be using Python to solve the picoCTF 2022 challenge called Visionaire. So I picked this one for a video because I think it's a great example of basic cryptography in capture the flag challenges. It involves the Cypher cipher and the code for the Cypher cipher, and then the application of that to build the Vigenere encryption and decryption. So Vigenere is basically like using a keyword to use the Cypher cipher with multiple shifts. From the point of view of doing Python, it's also a very useful exercise of like manipulating strings and manipulating lists to perform this algorithm, and you probably are going to need some functions. So I think the best way to solve this challenge is with programming. So check out how I solved it, along with commentary of Stuffy, who's a very, very experienced CTF competitor. The next one is Visionaire, and Visionaire I'll never forget because I misinterpreted I confused it with the substitution in the last tutorial.
I didn't realize that was one of the ones coming up.
Yeah, but here it is finally. Decrypt this message using this key Scilab. All right. So I'm just going to do everything in that REPL. Before we do anything, you cannot understand Visionaire without understanding Cypher cipher. Now, like how often does Cypher cipher come up in CTFs? Because it's like the easiest cipher, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, it depends on, I mean, if they're easy CTFs or if they're easy, then they'll do like variations of the Cypher cipher just to try and teach people. But if you're actually doing a serious CTF, you're not going to see a Cypher cipher typically, unless they're trying to just make you go down a rabbit hole or something like that.
Yeah, for the preparation of this challenge, I'm just going to give everyone like an example of a Cypher cipher. I mean, this REPL is going to be in the description, so I can get away with having one link for all the code. But the demo here is, for example, you will have a particular shift by which everything shifts. So let's say you have a word, like you could say good, and you will enter a shift of 1. So now where you see G is going to be H, where you see O, it's going to be P. So it's going to be H, P, P, and E. H, P, P, E. And this is an example of like exactly how you encrypt. You go shift the letter. This function here shifts the letter, basically. Like that's as simple as it gets. I've done this with year 7 students. The only thing that I've modified that code that I've done with beginners is if I do this, it will still work, right? So it actually, this is important because the cipher, the Visionaire assumes that you're shifting uppercase and lowercase. And since we're shifting the flag, and if we mess up the uppercase and lowercase letters, then the flag isn't going to work because it's case sensitive. So like this basically checks if the letter is lowercase, and then, sorry, like if the letter is uppercase, then it makes sure that it prints it back as upper after shifting. And if it's lowercase, it just leaves it as lowercase. Okay, so I think now that we kind of understand what Cypher cipher is, we can move on to the Visionaire. And the Visionaire is like a Cypher cipher, except that it's encoded with a word, and the position of the letter of the word makes it a different shift. So basically, a Visionaire is like a collection of Cypher ciphers. And so we're going to use the shift letter. And if you have some level of misunderstanding at this point about what Visionaire is, we're going to like really hands-on test it, and you will understand as we go. But the main thing that you need to understand in the Vigenere cipher is that it's going to have a keyword. And the keyword is going to dictate what the shifts are. So in this case, the keyword was Scilab. So we're going to call that key equals to Scilab. Okay, so if that's the key, then we're going to need a message. wget. And I have a feeling it'll literally be very flaggy.
Yeah.
So we'll wget that. And then we'll ask us, yes. Okay. Yep. It is very flaggy.
Yeah, they always leave those brackets in for you.
So if we go here, I mean, I can just call this Cypher Text equals to that. Okay, so like, imagine the first one, let's say the word is C. So that means that the first one is going to have shift of 0, 1, 2. So the first letter goes in is a shift of 2. And then the second letter, and you could basically do this by hand. And the second letter is Y. Oh, that's like 25. And the second letter is going to shift 25 and so on, right? However, let's do it with code because that's going to be one, a lot faster. Second, if you ask me, it's a lot more interesting. So what do we need for a function that does Vigenere decryption? We're going to need Vigenere. I mean, encrypting and decrypting is like plus or minus shift. So like, I might as well just call it. Let's just do straight decrypt. But encrypt and decrypt is different by 1 minus. So there's going to be a key, there's going to be a message. And on every, we're going to use that global alphabet up there. Make sure, I mean, if you're doing the code yourself, just copy the alphabet from somewhere. It takes 5 minutes to write it yourself. So that's a solution. And like, let's just do the solution here. That's a string. We're going to need, and now I can do this. And the same thing goes for the last one. I mean, I can use something called list comprehensions in Python. Have you used those before?
I have not. No.
So it's kind of like you, in one line, you create a list using a loop and an operation. And it's sort of doing 3 things in one line. And again, it's not, I don't like it's just not great code. So I'm going to do it in a slightly more complicated way. So we need to keep track of the key index. And we need to keep track of, let's keep that at 0. And also there was a trouble with it because the way that this is going to work is the shifts are going to ignore the actual non-alphabetic characters.
Okay.
So suppose that, suppose the first shift is 2 and the second one is 25, right? If this was a bracket there, not only would it ignore the bracket, the Y would apply to the letter after the bracket. Okay, so let's, so key index, and we may need to extend the key, right? Our key is 5 letters. And I'm just gonna, because you just keep using it key times, I don't know, 100's more than enough. So let's go for a letter in message. For a letter in message, we need a shift. So to determine the shift, we need to get the index of the key letter. So the key index is 0. So key letter equals to key of key index. We can key index plus equals to 1. And now we can basically figure out, so what are we shifting? So for a letter in message, we've got the key index, and we're going to need the shift. So let me just shift. Shift equals to alphabet dot index of key letter. So the key is always, the key letter is always lowercase. So if this is all we do, I mean, I can just test out that it's at least working. Print shift. And so let's say decoded message, decrypted message equals to Vigenere decrypt Scilab. And I think we call this Cypher Text. Now, this should give us a long list of printouts of numbers, of shifts that are going to go letter by letter by letter by letter. So Python 3, what's this called? Visionaire. V. And that looks really good, right? So we got shifts of 24. Now,
11. Yep.
The thing is, we're getting like I'll happily make the error. The thing that we need to make sure is that the numbers and these things get ignored. So we should have shifts of 0 here.
Yep.
And we don't. We're currently not ignoring it. I guess what we can do is just get it wrong first. So now it becomes pretty straightforward because we've already got the shift letter right here. And we also have managed to get the correct or close to the correct shift right there. So all we need to do is we can stop printing the shift and we can just say solution plus equals to shift letter and letter. And because it's decryption, it is minus shift. And if we were to print decrypted, so that, I mean, that should look, that was deleted, clear Python 3 visionaire.py. Type to string, can only concatenate. Okay. I'm just a little bit worried looking at this. What is it actually? If I print shift here and run it again, where does it fail? Okay, let's just make sure that we're shifting only things that are in the alphabet. I was sure that there's an if statement here, like there, if letter.lower is in the alphabet, but let me double check. Let me double run this. Okay, but the message is none. Four-letter in message. So we're running the Cypher text here. Message is the second parameter. Print shift, comma letter. Okay. And the shift letter returns one more thing. So if the letter isn't in the alphabet, solution. Oh, we're not actually returning the solution. Solution plus equals, geez, man, letter, and then return solution.
Oh, yeah.
All right, that could be,
there you go.
There you go. There is, before we move on, I really want to just basically stress one thing and one place where I was wrong. See that else statement? The actual iteration of the index should not happen when it hits brackets, right? So what would have happened if we just had this? It's really, really strange because I had this actually print out a wrong answer the first time I was running it. And that's why I was like, but it usually should read something. And then I had to look at a write-up to be sure that, and yeah, indeed, the write-up showed me an answer that read something. But there it is. I just want to tell people that like the actual index doesn't move when it hits brackets. And I'll just try one more thing here to see if I can get that wrong answer. That was my first answer right there.
Yep.
Right. So
yeah, you can tell because you can tell the brackets are what screwed it up because it has the picoCTF correct.
Yes.
And then it hit those brackets.
And I'm like, like it just, I didn't want to test it because I want to reveal everything for the first time. I think I might have tested it in the end because I was a bit nervous, but like those brackets there, that iteration of the index right here is what does it. So yeah, that's something. And I don't know that the actual Cypher itself has rules of like whether the shifting continues or not. So it's just it either does or doesn't. And I guess if you're in a different CTF, they may not apply the same rules. So just
I would say it's probably not, just because when that Cypher was created, they didn't really use brackets. So they probably didn't account for it.
Yeah. And like I try to Google, like, do you ignore them? Does it continue? And I got conflicting answers. So that was
well, I've used an online decoder for the Cypher, and you kind of had to play with it a little bit to get it to give you the correct answer as well.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Okay. So moment of, oh no, that was, I need to rerun it again to get the right one.
Yep.
Don't use Visionaire.
That's probably right.
Yeah. Copy.
It's got the name in it.
And submit flag. Boom.
Boom.
All right.